So we had a customer come in that wanted his springs cut on a 99 S10. Of course, this is not the way you're supposed to do this. Just go buy lowering springs and be done with it, so you don't have to mess with all the figuring it out part. But you don't have the money for that, so this is what we're doing. First, what I did was I just took everything loose, and then I dropped the ball joint, and then dropped the whole A-arm. Make sure you get the truck high enough that the whole A-arm won't hit the ground. Pull the springs out. The tricky part on this is when you cut the springs, everywhere online that I've read says that one coil is about, or that half a coil is about an inch. So that means 1.5 coils should drop at about 3 inches. Every spring is different. Whenever you do this, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to cut like half a coil off, put it back together, test it, see how much it dropped. Cut another half a coil off if you want it to go lower, put it back together, test it, see how much it dropped. And then so on and so forth. You don't really want to cut more than 1.5 coils. If you cut more than 1.5, just go buy a different spring. Any more than that, you're going to start sacrificing ride quality, and it's going to be like riding in a dump truck. And disclaimer, like I said before, this is not the way you're supposed to do this, but it's not unsafe to do this, as long as you know what you're doing. Okay, I'm going to get this cut, and then I'll show you all the reinstall. Main trick with cutting it, cut it with a grinder. Don't cut it with a torch. Just take your time, don't push too hard, let the tool do the work. You push too hard, the grinder's going to jump around on you and you're going to have a bad day.
And wear safety glasses.
And wear safety glasses. So we got a coil and a half cut off. That's what the customer wanted.
This was requested by the customer. We know you're not supposed to do this, but
Disclaimer.
This is exactly what they wanted.
5 springs. So, to put this back together, what we're going to do, you're going to get it seated up in there, and then it'll sit on the shock.
It's hanging on the shock, kind of? Oh, it's sitting on the bottom.
Yeah. The reason why I left the shock in there is it just makes it easier working alone to put it all back together. Because of that, it'll hold it in place while I get the jack underneath the A-arm. A lot of people will probably just drop the top of the shock, bust the ball joint loose, and then everything will come down. I left the top of the shock in, and then I just rotated the bottom of the shock around through the hole in the A-arm. And then that way I have a little pedestal to put the spring on while I get everything else lined up. If you're working with somebody, then you know you can do whatever way because you have 2 sets of hands. But like this seems to be the easiest. Okay, now what we're gonna do? I'm gonna take that spring and I'm gonna set it up right in that groove, right there.
What groove?
This groove.
Ooh, it's hard to see in there.
See this groove right here?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to take that spring and just set it up in there. And then make sure everything else is getting lined up as you're going up. The tie rod, ain't a big deal, that can be lined up afterward. As you're lifting up, make sure your brakes ain't going to get smashed in there in any way. Okay. Now that we got this, we got the spring where it needs to go, I think. Yeah, it's all the way in. It helps to have 2 people, obviously. What we're going to have to do here is push this over and then jack it up slowly. Okay, this is a lot safer. So that's what you want to do. You want to keep that shock pushed forward as you're lifting up. I got grease all over me. I hate ball joints.
Why?
Those are nasty, dirty junk.
You have that on these big jobs.
Really a big job.
On these medium jobs.
Okay, so what we're gonna do here is go down just enough so we can get this ball joint lined up. See that? Okay, looks like we're in everywhere. Just be sure. And there we go. We got everything in, everything lined up. First thing I did was turn the shock sideways. Even if I was to let go or the jack would slip out right now, the shock would catch the A-arm and it would keep everything in place. You're going to push that in to where you can see the threads on the bottom. You're going to grab your 22 millimeter and just tighten that up until it's snug, and then put your cotter key in it. So this is what we're going to do here. You're just going to slowly work it up there. You can see a lot better right there. This is that castle nut that we're tightening.
I really hope that's actually what that's called.
It is. See, like the top of it looks like the little the slots for that you shoot the arrows out of on a castle.
That's hilarious that's why it's called that.
The thing is, I've heard it called castle nuts too, where it's just a like a nut with a ridge on the bottom of it. I've heard that called castle nuts also. But it could just be people not knowing what they know, or not knowing anything. If that's also called a castle nut, let us know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now once you get this so tight, on that ball joint, there's going to be a hole in that stud, the 6-0. It doesn't have to be as tight as you can get it. It has to be one of these little slots in this nut has to line up with that hole that's in that stud. And then, I don't know where the old one is. You're going to put your castle nut or your cotter key in it. Cotter key is just a little thin piece of metal. You just slide it through, bend it on both sides, and it just keeps that nut from backing off.
Didn't they have to take one off to get this off?
Yes. You're going to want to replace your cotter keys. Don't reuse your old one. You can in a pinch, but it's best to just replace them. I can't find where this one goes.
So there's a little hole that it goes in?
Yeah.
You just gotta line it up. So tighten it all the way and then back it out until it's lined up with that hole.
Yep. I don't even have a cotter key to put in it right now, so I'm just gonna leave it and come back to it. Make sure your rubber piece is on your sway bar link when you put the sway bar over it, and then put your other rubber piece on top. Just thread the nut down. Tighten that till it's tight. Then I'm gonna grab the tie rod, get it lined up. Oh, I just had that nut too. Where'd it go? Over here. You got another castle nut. This also has a cotter key that goes into it. You can see the hole right there. Can't really see it on the video, but yeah, the hole's on this side. So you're just going to tighten that down, put the cotter key in it. On an S10, you got this, your ABS or your wheel speed sensor. It is put in by a bolt right here. More than likely, you're not going to be able to get that off. I had to cut it off with a grinder, but I mean, it's a pain. So when you go to put this back in, just get somebody to secure that in there that's easily removed. I'm going to put a zip tie in there. When you put that on there, you're going to want to make sure that it's not going to slide through. So
When you put your zip tie on there,
yeah. No, you don't have to do this. You can secure it any way you want to, but that bolt's, you'll see when you're taking it off, that bolt's a pain in the ass. You're supposed to get around behind it, but there's literally no way in behind it. You can't even use the extension and a swivel. And to run a wrench into it, you can't, because there's this line here, or the sensor wire. So I couldn't get it off. I had to cut it.
but if you can get it off, you don't have to use a zip tie.
Yeah. Okay, and this is gonna run up behind here, and it plugs in right into this. Yep, can you see?
Where you unplug it from is where it plugs in.
Right here, yeah. This, well, you can watch this video to get a good idea of how to take it apart too. You reach up in there and you'll feel this, and then this is actually secured to the frame. So what you do is you take this off, and then just grab this other piece and just pull on it. For these brakes, just get you a C-clamp, go around and everything, and just squeeze slowly. Don't do too much. You put a little pressure on it, you got to give it time for the brake fluid to move back. If you notice, if you just keep trying to put pressure, it just gets harder and harder and harder. If you wait a second, it's easy to turn again. So, that's all done. Then what we're going to do is we're going to slide this over the rotor as best I can. Sorry. Find the hole. Find this one. Now these are going to have threads. You can see the threads right there. Just move it around until you get the thread to catch. Grab you a big old Allen wrench. That's the technical term. I don't know how big it is. It's big.
Big old Allen wrench. What size? Big O.
Y'all might get lucky. 3/8.
Yeah. You can call it that too.
And then this takes a while. You just tighten them up to the tight. Once you got both brakes on, get in there, give the brake a pump until it gets tight again. If you broke the system anywhere, you leaked any brake fluid anywhere, you're going to need to bleed your brakes. I had a problem with this one on the other side that the brake line was old and rotted out, and as soon as the caliper hung in the brake line, it just snapped. So we bought him a new brake line. Okay, you got your shocks, came through the bottom of the A-arm. Right there, you're going to put your bolts back in it. Come on. Okay. And then once you get everything tightened up, you're ready to go. It's done. So if you were going to take this all apart, what you would do is you would do tie rod, sway bar.
What?
In the order that you would take it apart in, you would take the tie rod off, your sway bar off, your brakes, and you could turn it either way that you need to because you got the tie rod off. Spider. Run your line around for your wheel speed sensor, lay it over, get back here. Once you got everything out of the way, there's no lines, there's two lines that are going to go forward to the top A-arm. It's your brake line and your wheel speed sensor. Make sure those are out of the way. Once you have those out of the way, you have everything else disconnected. You're going to take your nut off of your top ball joint, and you can put your separator in right here, or if you have the spreader, I don't really know what it's called. It's like a bar tool, and it's got a little nut up here and the bottom half.
What's this thing?
Huh? This is a ball joint fork. These can cause damage to your ball joints. If you're going to replace your ball joints anyway, go for this. If there's a special bar, and what it is it'll push from both ball joints on the back side, and it'll push from one against the other, or you could push both of them out at the same time if you wanted to, and it doesn't really cause any damage. Don't hit your ball joint threads with a hammer. Very bad way to screw up your ball joints. Like, say if you're doing your tie rod one right here, if you take this nut off and you just hit this with a hammer, if it doesn't pop loose within like 2 hits, you're going to screw your threads up. You're going to need a new tie rod. So if you plan on reusing it, use a separator. If you use a separator or some sort of press tool. If you don't care about it, hit it with a hammer. Who cares? I'm going to get everything tightened up, and we'll come back when it's on the ground and see how much it dropped. Ain't no need to show you the same thing twice. I'm going to go ahead and get this side done, set it on the ground so you can see how much it dropped.
This side's going to be basically the same thing as that other side.
So we're about to set it on the ground. Hopefully I'll be able to get the jack off and raise it.
You think it's going to be that low?
Might be.
Wow, it's pretty low. That lowered it quite a bit.
Got the jack out. It'll settle just a
Yeah.
little bit lower too.
Look at the back, way up there.
Yeah, that's next.
And then this. That lowered it quite a bit.
I'm gonna send him a picture. He'll be happy with it.
Wow. There's almost no tire gap. Well,
Another job half-assed done. I mean, well done.
now that's why the tire gap looks different, guys. There's two different tires on the front of this S10.
I cut the same off, but I didn't account for the S10 lean.
Or the different tire.
But S10 lean would take a lot more trial and error fitting it and stuff.
S10 what?
S10 lean, I think they're higher on the passenger side.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's weird. Okay.
But so that's how you do the front. We're not gonna get the back in this video because it's a whole different process. It's pretty straightforward though. You drop the loop springs, put the axle on top of the loop springs instead of below it.
Show them.
I mean, can you see it?
Yeah, I can get under there.
Okay. So it's already been done one step. You have to put the axle on top of the leaf springs. Okay. The next step that we're gonna do is we're gonna put blocks in between the axle and the leaf springs. And then what that is going to do is it's going to raise the axle further into the truck and put the leaf springs further down. So the leaf springs are going to be like down here. And then you'll be, that much lower. These are the blocks that we're going to use.
You can probably get those anywhere. Any parts store.
Oh, they're cheap. I'm sure it's like $80 for the whole set.
Yeah, but we're not going to put that part in this video. It's a whole different thing.
Yep.
Just the part you're not supposed to do usually.
So now I'll get started on the back. See y'all next time.